Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive! This week, I continue my series on the races of AD&D 2nd Edition Spelljammer with the Beholders. This is a video I've been looking forward to since the start of the series. Beholders are one of the more interesting divergences in Spelljammer. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as I tell you all about the Eye Tyrants. To begin talking about Beholders, we need to talk about them on the ground. This is where most people have experienced their floating eye monster. A Beholder has a central eye that puts a 90-degree anti-magic cone out in front of it, and then they have various other eye stalks that each one shoots out a different ray. Noting that one of these usually is just a mere telekinesis eye stalk. Obviously, it's an eye stalk that exists for a Beholder to manipulate things. But Beholders are interesting on the ground. They're a solitary creature. You generally only ever encounter one at a time. If you encounter two at a time, they're most likely trying to kill each other. Why is this? This is because Beholders on the ground are the absolute most xenocidal species there is. They want to kill everything that does not look exactly like them. Note, that doesn't mean that they're going to let other Beholders get a pass. It's if that other Beholder does not look exactly like the Beholder that he's encountering, they're both going to try and kill each other. Because neither one looks exactly like the other. And that is how most people encounter Beholders. They're considered evil, but it's more along the lines that they're alien. And some Beholders do learn to curb these tendencies, but it is a very instinctual tendency on a groundling Beholder to want to kill anything it encounters just because it looks different. Where does this come from? And, how do Beholders work in space? You might be wondering as well. This is where it gets interesting. So, in space, in the Spelljammer setting, you'll have whole ships full of Beholders. Wait, but they're xenocidal and will kill anything that doesn't look exactly like them, I hear you responding. Well, that's the thing. That ship full of Beholders all has a common parent who also happens to live on that ship. This common parent has made sure all the Beholders look exactly alike. This common parent looks sort of like a Beholder, but not entirely. Hive mothers don't have eye stalks, but they do have eye bulges. Yeah, they look a little bit different than the standard Beholder. But The Hive Mother is the mother of all beholders on a ship. And thus they're all siblings with the same parent. And when a beholder ship runs across another beholder ship, both crews try to murder each other. Completely kill everyone, including the Hive Mother of the other ship. And that is what the beholders do. Beholders are in space. In some ways are still very much the ones on the ground. But they're on a larger scale. They actually have some sort of social organization. In fact, the bartender on the Rock of Brawl is the sole survivor of his own group of beholders. And that's kind of an interesting thing in and of itself. So, when you look at beholders, you've got Xanathar on Faerun. You've got the bartender on the Rock of Brawl. And there's a few scattered out there beholders that aren't like the others. But, for the most part, most beholders exist to defend their Hive Mother from other beholders and other sentient beings. Now, beholders are a little different in another way. Beholders don't use helms like other races. And in fact, their ships are something special. So first, the beholders actually deal with one sentient race other than beholders. They deal with the arcane, the master shipwrights of the Spelljammer setting. And every beholder is part of a beholder nation. Yeah, this is kind of interesting in that despite being how xenocidal they have their own nations. And each nation has its own ship design. I mean, they're all identical. I mean, mechanically speaking, the Tyrant ships are all the same. They're 23 tons, maneuverability class C, can't land, and all that fun stuff. They are technically unarmed ships. What do I mean technically unarmed? Well, they have the most dangerous weapon in space. A large quantity of beholders. I mean, a Tyrant ship is going to have at least 15 beholders on it. Plus a Hive Mother. Plus the Orbises that are the helm. What are Orbises, I hear you ask? Orbises are a beholderkin. They don't really do much. They just kind of glow and float. And, oh yeah, provide motive force for a spelljamming ship. The more you have in one place that aren't being used, the faster the ship will go. Now, what do you mean being used, I hear you ask? I mean, they're providing motive force for the ship, so wouldn't that be their use? No. It's not quite what they're used for. Oh yes, it is one of their primary uses, but they have a secondary use that's kind of terrifying. You see, there's this thing called a beholder circuit. A beholder, an orbis, and a hive mother are able to focus the power of a beholder's eye beam into a dangerous ray that can reach an adjacent ship in spelljamming combat. Now, there are some other elements in that beholders can definitely perform horrific boarding actions on another ship. And I'm actually kind of surprised beholder ships don't have grappling rams standard. But that's just me. And when I say beholder ships vary, the tyrant ships vary. They could look like giant walnut shells. They look like a huge eyeball. They could look like a gigantic beholder. Or a mass of squid-like tentacles. Every ship for every beholder nation is unique. And that's kind of useful because it's a great way to tell what the status of any group of beholders you're running into is, just by how strong the nation that their ship belongs to is. But at the same time, it's absolutely bewildering. But let's take a moment here. What is the importance of the beholder nations, and how is it that the xenocidal natures of ones on ground, how does that come out of that? Well, imagine, if you will, that what's actually happened is those ones on the ground are the result of a battle between beholders. Between beholder ships. And maybe a battle between several different nations of them. And they crash on the planet. And the beholders scatter out. The hive mothers who keep them in line are dead. Maybe it's scars that change their appearance. Maybe it's just various other elements. Things happen that change their appearance. But you've got two populations of beholders that were used to being kept in line by one entity. And that entity on each side is no longer there. So what's going to happen is they're going to fall to their base instincts. There is no hive mother to protect, so they're going to want to make sure they're the strongest representative of their hive. And they're going to start killing anything that's not them. It's an instinctive pull. And it's even noted that Xanathar, the beholder crime lord of Waterdeep, has to resist that urge to just kill anyone that comes in around him. And that is the beholders. Next week, I talk about what happens when you have a orc-like race that actually follows a rigid set of tactics and laws and order. They're still evil, but they're now a actual organized race. Next week, I talk about the Skrow. So until then, I'd like you all to remember to have fun and keep gaming.